You know, some things in Breath of the Wild make me mad. No, not in the, oh my gosh, I'm just so angry kind of way, but in the, what the heck, why would you put that there kind of way? Kinda like the ruins of Lon Lon Ranch. You know, this ranch right here. You see how it's called the Ranch Ruins? You see how it's exactly the same layout of Lon Lon Ranch from Ocarina of Time? Complete even down to the door in that milk storehouse behind the ranch? Yeah, it's obviously Lon Lon Ranch, but how could simple wooden structures and fences that are completely exposed to the elements survive more than 10,000 plus years that have passed since the events of Ocarina of Time took place? You see why I'm mad? It just doesn't make logical sense while it's still such an obvious reference. Or maybe I'm taking things just a little too seriously. I mean, I am a theorist, but either way, it seems like Nintendo sometimes just decided to put stuff around this world of Hyrule and then let the fans piece together what they mean or what they were references to. In fact, I know that's what they were thinking because that was essentially their answer for its timeline placement. But anyway, another one of these places that's just kind of there and doesn't have any official explanation for its existence is the Ancient Tree Stump. That's right, the giant tree surrounded by a little lake with the bokoblin camp on top and the Lizalfos having a nice fun day in the water below. You've all seen it, we've all seen it, but nobody knows what the actual heck it's supposed to be. But you know, I wouldn't be a theorist if this sort of thing didn't bother me, and trust me, it does. So I started to really take in the surroundings, and wouldn't you know it, there are some very, very peculiar things this whole area has got going on. So much so that I think I have the giant sliced woods backstory figured out. So without further ado, let's delve into what happened to the Ancient Tree Stump in Breath of the Wild. So first off, let's take a look at the stump itself and deduce what we can about its current state of, decapitation. Not only is it, you know, a stump, but it has a makeshift log bridge connecting nearby land to its surface. Its severed upper portion appears to have been cleanly cut off, for the most part, except for some of the outer bark sticking up in certain places, meaning whatever cut this ancient tree down to stump size did so intentionally, or with great care. In fact, it has what appears to be other branches that have also been cleanly cut off as well. No splintering at all. Strange indeed. Other than its stump state and the fact that it's giant and really, really old, there isn't much more we can gather from the stump itself, except for one really odd detail that ultimately isn't that important, but I can't help to point out because it is so odd. The leaves. Okay, let me back up and explain this real quick. You see, the stump appears to be, at least in part, still alive. There are little branches that have recently been sprouting on the sides of the tree, meaning the stump is actually alive and growing new branches that we can see in-game. This sort of thing actually does happen to stumps in real life, and some of you watching who are more knowledgeable than I am with trees and such can probably back me up on this. But when a tree stump actually keeps on living and growing branches and whatnot, it's called a living stump. Without trying to explain too much detail about the science behind living stumps and, you know, probably making a fool of myself, it has to do with the outer layer of the stump living on while the center of it is dead. This may even explain the fact that the stump seems to have been cleanly sawed through, but the outer bark has overgrown the edges in some places. Now, back to the leaves. This living stump is producing leaves that are falling and being scattered around to the water below. And what's especially odd about this is the fact that these leaves are different than all the trees surrounding the lake. Nintendo was very peculiar in detailing these skinny trees, complete with their needle-like leaves showering the ground and even the water beneath them, but then they detailed the distinctly more aspen-looking leaves that the stump produces in the middle, which according to their color look like they've only fallen there recently. And seeing as the wind looks like it's normally blowing at least slightly to the east, this tree sitting way out here would be the only other possibility of providing leaves of this shape to the lake. But what are the chances that the wind takes leaves from this tree and puts them all the way over there in the middle of the lake and in that quantity? So okay, I've detailed the stump and the leaves itself, but let's move on to its surroundings. Aside from the different species of trees that surround the stump, the next glaringly obvious feature to point out would be the destroyed buildings that are present at the edge of the lake, near the start of the bridge, and under the water immediately surrounding the stump's roots. This means there used to be some sort of civilization civilization here next to the tree, probably because of the tree. The buildings, as far as I can tell, were of Hylian build and design, comparing them to the various other buildings that are similarly destroyed around Hyrule. But something struck me as particularly odd about the buildings' locations. So there are some underwater, right? I mean, we can see them right there. I'm assuming they weren't built under the water, meaning this area used to not be a lake. But looking at the bowl-like crater that the tree is rooted in, who would build structures in an area like this that's so easily flooded? I mean, it's almost a perfect bowl. Given how intensely prone to raining this area of Hyrule is, wouldn't this kind of flooding happen like every other day? As in often enough to flood while whoever built these houses was busy building said houses. So then it hit me. There must have been some sort of drainage for all this water back in the day. Otherwise, why and how would these buildings have been built here? Looking around, there really doesn't seem to be any possible way to drain the water from this lake. The only escape the water would have from sitting stagnantly in this lake would be either evaporation or absorption into the ground below, both of which don't happen nearly fast enough to save buildings from drowning in a flood. I mean, it really is quite the perfect little crater. But then I saw it. All along the crater's edge, you can see the color of the exposed dirt and sand, right? It's pretty uniform in color and texture, except for the side facing the eastern fields. You see, there's some pretty light colored sand here, where it isn't present anywhere else in the lake, that mixes with a texture the game uses for rubble that kind of drops off immediately after touching the water. And for literally anyone who has seen any part of this game ever, this sand should be pretty familiar looking to you. It's the same color of all the sand present all over the Great Plateau. It's the same sand present all over the ruins of Hylian fortresses. You see where I'm going with this yet? It's construction sand. It's used wherever Hylians have built forts, houses, temples, or even foundations of castle towns. They used the sand to level surfaces for construction, and it's present here on this side of this lake that at one point must have been able to drain the water from its basin. Otherwise, these buildings would not have been built in this location. The sand is visible in various parts of Hyrule due to all the ruins present and the damage that occurred in the calamity 100 years ago. And with one of these walls of this crater being seemingly made of construction sand and this rubble texture, I think there used to be some sort of large Hylian structure built here that has since been completely destroyed and collapsed. So with all of these clues, the living stump, the submerged buildings, the surrounding trees, and the artificial hill made of rubble and construction sand, let's piece together what may have happened to the ancient tree more than 100 years ago. I believe the tree was huge. That much is apparent, but it was so huge that the Hylians in their, let's call it desire for conquest and need to expand, saw the tree as a huge opportunity for an enormous amount of wood for the harvesting. I mean, after all, when you need a natural resource like wood, discovering a singular, giant, healthy tree with enough wood to build an entire civilization out of is like sweet ocarina music to a lumberjack's ears. So with the harvesting of the giant tree in mind, naturally, that would take a long time and lots of hands over lots of hours of work to accomplish, right? I mean, how would you even start harvesting a giant tree? Do you just chop it down and let the entire massive column crash into the earth? Or do you start from the top and slice it in pieces, working down the tree piece by piece? I think that's what they did. And at the base of the large tree, they built buildings for the workers that labored at this wood factory. I think they had all sorts of buildings, from dorms for the workers to a large, complex wood processing plant directly to the east of the tree. They continued on with this harvesting for however long it took to get to this height, branch by branch and slice by slice, until one day the calamity struck. Ganon and his minions laid waste to the land of Hyrule by and large, destroying every building and every home they laid their eyes on. Even remote civilizations like the Shadow Hamlet ruins were not safe. In their violence, the Hylian constructions around the wood factory were completely destroyed, and the foundations of their buildings where the construction sand was present caved and created a wall, completing the crater surrounding the tree. Over the following 100 years, the rains flooded the lake with water, permanently submerging the old buildings under the surface, but also providing water for grass and trees to grow on the edges of the crater. Natural irony. And that is my theory on what happened to the ancient tree stump. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Also, real quick before I end, I wanted to touch on just a couple quick pointers that are probably still on everybody's minds. First up, touching on the log bridge connecting to the surface of the tree stump, seeing as it's, pretty decently intact and made of some pretty skinny looking logs, it was probably built sometime within the past 100 years by the bokoblins and moblins that have been patrolling the area. They just saw a cool spot for a camp and decided to build a bridge to get there. I mean, they are known for crafting very unique camps and whatnot, but of course they're also disgusting, which is why there's a bunch of trash on top of the tree. And the skinny logs that they used to make the bridge out of were probably just taken from these skinny trees lying around everywhere. Also, really quick, I wanted to mention that while I didn't touch on what this tree used to be, as in whether or not I believe this is an old Deku tree, I do have some guesses. If you guys want me to touch on that in a future video, let me know down below and I'll keep it in mind. As always, huge thank you to all of you for watching. Leave a like for this video if you enjoyed it, and make sure you're subscribed with that bell icon so you don't miss out on any more Nintendo goodness. And to my amazing patrons who make my day every day, I have 3 new additions. Say hello to the epic Robert Rohrback, Dusty Day, and Lou Silverman, who have joined my elite crew. If you're interested in getting your name up here at the end of each of my videos, feel free to check out the link in the description below. Also down there are the links to my social media pages, so come on over and say hi. This is maskednintendobandit signing out. Wash your hands and stay safe, people. Peace!